morning to your colleagues as well.
And of course, my colleague was just talking, Nancy was just talking about what this should mean to us. First of all, let's start with at least having done the 3-year IMF program. The IMF assessment is that perhaps, and all the indicators show that we have achieved the targets of the program, even ahead of schedule. Should we be patting ourselves on the back for that?
Well, not really. With respect that once you go into a program on the back of, actually, you went to the program and stitches, right? In an emergency. When you were told, the last time you was told, that go to them as early as 2021, 20, yeah, there, and they never back. And I recall my good friend, the Honorable Minister, suggesting that the finance minister, that we are proud people, whatever we do, we should not go to the IMF. And incidentally, well, we went, and we went and pitched, we went and a certificate of emergency. It was like, so if you look at the success as a job, a record recovery in time that never happened in this country before. It has called for some significant acknowledgement of the dexterity of the current economic management team. You know, they don't even like to call themselves a team, but because, you know, something good doesn't need to probably advertise itself. In any case, the point is that the economic management prowess of the current team obviously delivered that's faster than ever. And like this, it still leaves some very good record. I mean, it's the thing that you have to pay your debt, about 20% reduction of debt in 1 year, never happened before. You know, I keep hearing people say, oh, I should be careful, and that the same way I was praising like the administration when they came on board, and then within 2-3 years, so people telling me this and not acknowledging the fact that we did say that by 2019 thereabout, the economy was tanking. Now they accept, and they're advising me to be cautious because this always happens. I said, but guys, yeah, maybe you're right, but do you see there's a difference here? There's a huge difference here. One is that these guys, in spite of the record achievement, they're also humble. You know, excuse me. I mean, John, the president, and the team, economic team, are so humble. I would understand it. You know, when some of us suggested that, okay, look, we can't get out the IMF, and that we need an additional 2 years under the IMF watch because I don't trust politicians to not split after getting out the program. You know, I was shocked to learn that I thought I'd already planned this whole idea of staying within the guardrails of the IMF for an additional 36 months. That's beyond the election. You know what is projecting and telling you? Even though I'm not bound to do that, but I want to be sure that there's a policy credibility that the investment community globally is seen as a credible partner to invest in. And even then, I'm not going to rush to the market because I have enough domestic resources possibly to spawn infrastructure development. You know, either way, no matter how you look at it, there's a master stroke in humility, a master stroke in achieving record economic, other achievements. And the difference here, people must realize. The reason why some of us are quite happy, the difference is clear. One, this was achieved in record time, in spite of all the GDP, the GDP was like really focusing on savings and investments. And in spite of the fact that the fastest reduction in countries that have been achieved in the year, 20 percentage points from 51 about 41 or so percent in 1 year, never happened. And as I said, on top of that, the finance team have but they have the audacity to be humble. Can you imagine? To the extent that they go and tell them, okay, yeah, we are getting off, we've achieved everything, but we are not even going to get off quiet. We want to be bound by a policy coordinating, what's it called, tool so that we still be within the guardrails of what is called common sense economic management. How sell it? How handle it? And you see, that's the difference. So the difference between this time and the last time we got up the IMF is that, and I think that applies by my friends, the MPP. I acknowledge that. But the difference I'm telling them is that one, when our friends of Toyota left the environment at the time, it wasn't even done properly. They jumped up earlier than expected. Against the backdrop of promising 1 million barrels of oil a day, they never gave us a single barrel of oil. They promised public sector reform. We didn't see those. But about 90% of transactions were still going outside gift made. What are we talking? And by the end of the day, we realized that the economy was tanking from 2019. In fact, I've made this assessment and I still stand by it. The true gains that the NPP gave us in 2018 were the large results of the NDC's investment in 2015. Look at the energy. You know, Dusa was saw before John left power, and on the back of that, political resources were saved. No NPP member can deny it, and it's a fact. So 2017, so in that fact, what did NPP come to do? Apart from splitting the resources that we got right from 2019, in nebulous projects of wasting our money. One district, one village, one town. Those were dug out, costing about 3,000 cities, but the statue of 6,000 cities for one. Right. Anyway, so look, the point I'm making is that yes, we should celebrate, and yes, we should be cautious. But nobody's coming to tell me that I don't know history, economic history, to know that there are two different, and I've seen it from 1967 up to now. It's always a 3.5 year cycle. Then we go back to that. If this PCI is respected and done by the various politicians, and this current president and team members, but the politicians who want to show off with all kinds of projects, which probably are not by the system, you must understand that if we keep piling pressure and we get out of this mode, and then something else happens, they are the first to do. But the PCI, for 6 months, in addition to completing this IMF with flying colors, indeed, it's a master stroke, as I said, in economic diplomacy and national respect. But you see, going that, we even need to be cautious that there are very difficult demons in this economy, which we need to confront. There's no way we should be spending $2 billion a year on wasting and wasteful stakeholders. That doesn't make sense. ECG is giving us a lot of bills. There are about, I don't even know what NIB, International Investment, how do they call it? I don't know why they are existing. There are so many institutions that might be cut off, killed, buried. But some of them, right? And I think that I'm sorry, my friend is the figure. If I was to look at your outside, I was giving the people to look at referee for how sweet it will be.
Mr. Kujo,
yes.
we're hearing you clearly until now. Are you using any?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. It's far better because you're making a point on the SOEs, for example, because you're talking about, you said there are demons in this economy that must be dealt with. One of them for you is the expenditure on the SOEs.
Exactly. In fact, the expenditure, the debt they are accumulating, and those debts becomes an overhang on the executive, because at the end of the day, the ministry has to pay, but the ministry is the mother. And as I said, we have no business having NIB being resurrected. I don't see why that bank is existing. Seriously, there are so many of them that have to be young, and I wish I were giving some job of sorts to actually downsize the SOEs. It would be beautiful. By the way, we have done it before, and that's effective. When I worked in the committee that the Minister of Labour, the government, what's his name? Forgotten Ashite.
Yeah.
Put together.
I think Miyama Ashite.
Exactly. And then I was a member of the committee to wean off subvented agencies that we thought were wasteful. We did a lot of great work. We saved close to 250 million Ghana cedis for this country. And when my good friend Oforiatta came, he didn't think we should continue allowing all these agencies to grow back big again. And these were willing entities that were willing to get off the payroll. We know why we asked them, can you project and show us how you get off the payroll? And they were happy because, one of the things you do is that when you incentivize someone to be independent, especially when they know they get a lot of resources, they will be happy to give you all the scenario. And I did learn a whole lot. I believe we can bring that back and yank a lot of these wasteful SOEs of the payroll of the bill. As I'm saying, $2 billion a year is no mean money. And I think that will come back to bite this administration, this government, if we don't do anything significant about it. So going forward, yes, the PCI is a good thing. The minister says we'll hear from him in July when he put together a program. The program had better be very good at delivering jobs, sustainable jobs. Better be good at ensuring that, people say there should be money in our pockets. Some people say there's no money in our pocket these days. But the economics is funny. I mean, if we have a reduced inflation rate of less than 5%, and you have interest rate less than 17% or 17%, and all other ones, if it is not reflecting the economy, then there are challenges that we need to look at. And I suspect that the PCI will be part of those when the policy paper is out in July. Then these things will be very, very well, attended to. But as I speak, I still emphasize this getting of the IMF is a cleaner break and is a more humane and more respectful, humble plea to be guided by the IMF own guardrails. Although in this instance, there's no additional request for money. Thank you.
Okay, so you're waiting to see the program that they will put forward under the PCI. What should this government not do under that program for you? Because one of the questions that came up the last time, even to the IMF rep, was, will this be the last IMF arrangement? And it's the question that has been asked over and over again. What should this government never do if they want that cleaner break to continue?
Well, as I said, they started already by extending the IMF watch for additional 36 months. They are signaling that, look, they're not going to waste money in election years because it won't happen. I mean, to be subservient to IMF rules more or less during election period, it's never happened, right? So it tells you that at least there's some commitment not to splurge, not to go beyond the deficits that have been announced, the targets that have been announced, and so they should not. And I think this is a proper guide. What they should not ever do is to allow this whole idea of, now we are out of the IMF more or less. So let's continue doing whatever we want and split. At least I know that the finance minister will not do that. But you never know. Politicians are funny. Excuse me. And I suspect that one of the things we need to be careful about is asking for things that were not initially asked for, simply to placate some voters that we think would have to vote for us. It shouldn't be the case. And we shouldn't get on, programs that do not make any add value to the economy. I mean, recall when last administration did the PC PEG thing as a so-called homegrown policy to supplant the getting of the IMF. It was already dead on arrival because most of the things that were contained there were largely supposed to be led by politicians who had no understanding or connection to the way the economy should benefit in a multiplier effect manner from some sort of investment from the state. The monies went to all kinds of places. We can't trace any of them. So it's a thing that I suspect the finance minister should never ever encourage. And I know the president will also back him to ensure that, and I'll talk to the various ministers and say, look, guys, we have a legacy to leave. Yes, we have a government to protect, but at least we shouldn't be like our cousins the last time. And we don't want to go back to that after 3.5 years.
And let me conclude by asking you this question, because you're just even talking about a program that ensures sustainable jobs are created. It's the biggest question of politics when it comes to the management of the economy. Already, Dr. Kesala Tofosin has been taking some flack from even social commentators who claim that he is actually starving some ministries because of the issue of succession. And that's one of the biggest things this government will confront, the issue of successing. How do we ensure that we retain power after Mahama? And what will be the thinking of the person who walks it?
I'm not going to advise you on how to retain power, to retain power. That's, if you want to do that, you have to contract me fully and pay. So let's put that aside. I won't speak to that. But there's something else I'll say, which I think is sensible. Which the question you're asking is, how do we answer questions from people who are saying, "Oh, we are not spending, we need money to do this, but we have to retain power," and then something else. At the end of the day, one of the things I think we should be careful about, essentially, is what did we commit to do, right? What did we say we're going to do? What are the promises we promised people, and how are we delivering them? Don't forget, it's not just you politicians. Some of your politicians, when I say you politicians, not you, I'm just saying, it's not just politicians who think they have needs. Business people have needs. As I speak, a board member of my organization, a reputable, respectable man, is owed almost $14 million because he provided cables to the ECG, and they've not paid him. I've asked the ECG man, can I pay this man? This man, local, indigenous, respectable man who is supplying you stuff, and you're not paying him. How is he supposed to survive? Those are the people who build the economy. Those are the people who are owed. If you pay him, he's able to retain staff, because some of his staff are obviously is losing staff, and then make sure that those people hold the economy together. Not the fleeting desires of politicians that virtually spans 2-3 years, and then the economy goes under. No, that's not what we want. What we want here is that we want the productive elements of society to be paid. And as I hear, there are quite a number of people who are owed money. By the way, which is why I'm saying that this $2 billion annual debt, which hangs on around the neck of Forson or the government, of any government at all, must be looked at properly and stemmed the hemorrhage. Once you stem the hemorrhage, there'll be money to do other things. So their fight should not be towards Forson. Their fight should go to the SOEs. They should actually besiege the SOEs. And I don't mean literally besieging the SOEs physically. I'm just saying, go read the SOEs reports. And they should organize town halls. Call the CEOs of these wasting SOEs and say, come, you come here. Hey, how come you attracted this debt? Do you know what this can do in my village? Do you know what this can? Tell me how we are going to record this money. I suspect that's a revolution that should be led by the likes of the General Secretary of the party. They should raid all these wasting SOEs and ask them, why do you think you should survive? Why do you think you should be a CEO? Because you are giving us that debt. If they're able to do that and fight those demons, then there'll be a lot of resources freed to do other things. That's why they should go to. They should stop worrying anybody for fictitious projects.
Thank you, Mr. Kujo.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. Good morning.
Founding President of Imani Africa, Mr. Franklin Kujo, and his point is simple and straightforward. That they look the same, but he thinks that this administration has made a cleaner break from the IMF. And he also acknowledges what he says is the humility of this administration to say that we cannot start to say, oh, we figured it out. This administration says, okay, we've been able to do this, but we believe that we still need this kind of discipline that's been enforced by the IMF. So he said the humility is what he likes the most, the humility of this administration, because typically if you're able to achieve this within this short period of time, you believe yourself, Papa. You'll be very boastful and refuse to listen to anybody again.
And
so
this is the time that the kinky parties and then the
watching parties we have been
would have
organized.
been going on.
I remember I had an interesting interview. I don't know if I can still find that, where I was speaking to Kojo Oponkrumah. Kojo Oponkrumah is an interesting character in our politics. Now, when Kojo starts something, you realize, this is a slippery slope. Kojo will vanish. You won't find him again. So there was an interview back then. One of the rare moments when I got to host the Go Power Drive.
Mm.
And the interview was a celebration of what they call, is it the triple something, that they had achieved some three things. They visited the IMF and they secured some loan and some third thing. So then I asked him, is that why you're organizing a KK and Wache party? His answer was interesting. You know, Kojo finds it difficult to defend certain things. For example, if you go and call Kojo upon Nkrumah this morning, and say, what do you think of what Afenyo King has said? He will never talk about this issue. I can bet my last penny on it. He won't open his mouth and talk. He's a lawyer. He was a journalist. So free speech should be something that should be interesting, but he won't talk about it. So this is quite interesting. These were people who thought we've done well, we've led the IMF program, we've borrowed, and we are happy that we have borrowed. But these are a different group of people who are of the opinion that, okay, we are done with the IMF program,